All right, thank you everyone for being here. I appreciate it. We're going to take a look today at a couple different things, but focusing on the elementary school ATSI status, where things are at, as well as its relationship to the Forward test and the changes that are occurring in the Forward test this year. So I'm going to just kind of quickly start. I want to make sure that everybody knows me, and I don't know, I'm sure that you know each other as you've been working together for the year. But again, if you don't know me, my name is Tim Peterson. I'm the Director of Assessment for the district. So up close and personal with the Forward test, for instance. Also, I've been working on the ATSI identification in this process for several years. And so I want to just let you know that I also have that background as well. So I'm going to jump into the slide deck that I have. There's just kind of a small kind of a process that I want to go through. I want to make sure that you are aware of this. And I'm going to actually start the slideshow. So one of the things we're going to talk about today is what's the reason that Forward is so important. I mean, most of you know all of this stuff, but I just want to, again, just grounding and touching base so that if you are, in fact, relatively new to this, I want to make sure that you understand why it is that we're talking about this. First of all, I want to let you know that there is a team that supports you and your team with assessments in Doyle. My team is Sarah Wollner and Jamie Anderson. We have Stacy Will in Student Services, Ben Kolosh in state and federal programs, and Lindsay Mitchell, Lauren Lauder, and John Rabolzi. So we're all here to support you. Let's get into some of the grounding again about the Forward exam. Why is it critical? This is the state mandated assessment to determine whether or not students are moving along the developmental lines of the state standards. That was the first purpose of this. Along came No Child Left Behind, and the current version of that called ESSA. And this assessment is also used for the federal accountability as well as the state report cards. So the Forward assessment carries a lot of weight, but on the same token, I want to remind you that the dynamic learning maps carries equal weight. And the dynamic learning map is that assessment that is for those students who are learning, who have IEPs that are learning towards the essential element standards, which are Wisconsin's alternate accountability or alternate standards. By the way, I'm going to certainly give time for taking a break and answering questions as we go. So please, if you just jot them down for a few minutes, or you can jump in. We can certainly do that as well. Again, a reminder that Forward exam is all online. Tech Services is fully aware of this and working in support of that. There is a proctor and assessment coordinator site. It does contain something. It is a dashboard that has some information that's usable. The best information is definitely going to be found on EduClimber. For grades 4, again, that is also, besides the ELA and the mathematics, there's also the science and the social studies. It has to be given in person. The state window opens on the 18th of March and closes this year on the 26th of April. Please note that, of course, right in the middle of that, we have our MMSD spring break. ClassLink is not going to be available for this. Tickets will be coming to your assessment coordinator sometime around the second week in March. Okay. I'm going to just take a pause right now. Any questions about why the Forward is important? Okay, let's dive into a couple things. First of all, we're going to just remind everyone that sessions are not timed. The times that you're going to see in a moment are suggested or times that DPI has found as something that is
Here.
question. Okay. DPI has found these after several million tests. These are about the approximate times it takes most students. This year, the changes, we'll talk more in depth about them in a moment, but English language arts is in 3 sessions instead of 4. So we've dropped 1 session, and that we'll get into in just a moment, but the sessions are the reading sessions, number 1. Number 2 and number 3 are English language arts and writing. So let's just move into the timing of those particular sessions. So here is on this particular slide, you'll see grades 3, 4, and 5, the approximate time it takes for each of these entire components. So ELA takes 125 minutes. And with 3 sessions instead of 4, I was hoping it would be shorter than that, but it is 5 minutes shorter than it was in the past. Mathematics is 90 minutes for the 2 sessions there. 4th graders have 3 sessions in science and 2 in social studies. Now, we're going to actually take a look at what the sessions look like. So the first session is reading. The second session has a longer passage and then a writing in response to that, but there's also language arts questions. Third session is a shorter write and a few more questions. This again is the estimated times for math, science, and social studies. This is not this part has not changed. The slide deck will be made available to you right after this is done in the meeting agenda. So you can have this, but I also believe that your assessment coordinator has this information. It's also on the Forward assessment website. Okay. All right, here is what the first session in reading the ELA test looks like. It is a reading comprehension test. So that means there are some supports and universal tools that are not available. So for instance, the passage itself does not have text-to-speech available. It cannot be read to a student. Again, this is a reading comprehension portion, so they have to be able to read, understand, and then they are able to respond to the questions that are there afterwards. This is a 4th grade sample passage. It is 5 clicks or 5 pages. So a student may want to use the line reader tool so they can follow as they go down the page. We can take a look at that later if you'd like. But again, keeping in mind that it is a longer passage and then questions about the passage itself. So they can move back and forth between the questions and the passage. I do want to point out text-to-speech, TTS, text-to-speech, is not available to read the passages, but it can read the directions and the prompt and the answers, the answer choices. The second session is a shorter passage. This particular one, again, this is a grade 5. It is 3 pages long. And it says in the directions, as it did in the first section, it says in the directions that they're expecting one paragraph. It includes your topic, descriptive words and details to explain and include a concluding statement. There is no text-dependent analysis session this year. That was the one that's been dropped as well. It's been split, as well as there is no listening session. So last year there was a listening session where students would listen and respond to that. That is completely gone. Text-dependent analysis has been broken down into 2 different writing components. One of the things that we had with text-dependent analysis was we had a document that the students could keep on their desk that was kind of like a checklist, a writer's checklist. That is not the case right now. Students cannot have that for this year's Forward exam. So they will need to understand how to put together a paragraph on their own. In session 2, after they finish the one paragraph response, then they will have several more questions that are language arts type questions. The difference here is that because this is not reading comprehension, text to speech will read everything. It will read the essay. It will read the directions, the prompts, and any of the answers as well. And finally, session 3. This is the shortest of the 3 sessions. It's writing in response to a prompt. Again, expected one paragraph, text to speech will read everything. There are also very few questions after this. So for instance, the sample test in session 2 had 12, I believe 12 questions. This is about 5. So again, session 3 will be shorter, writing, and then into some more questions. All right, here is the link to the practice test, and I want to just take you there quickly because it will also highlight some of the things that are going on in the world of accommodations and supports. So by clicking there, you get to the practice test. And I'm going to go to a grade 3 ELA test. So on this practice test, you can also see that there are practice portions. For instance, if you have a student who needs video sign language, you can actually see what that looks like. This practice test, by the way, is open to students, it's open to families, it's open to staff. I would highly encourage staff to take a look at this. I will be sharing this on the website, both the public facing and on the staff only side of the assessment and forward testing website. So the practice test will give you a good idea. In fact, this is generally exactly what you will see if you are a student and actually taking the test. So it confirms that you are who you are. So each student has a ticket. They go in and they say, yes, this is me. So then I will need to continue. And then they do have a choice. So session 1, session 2, session 3, initially I can pick any of them. If a student picks a session that you are not planning on them picking, I would urge you to let them finish that session. The reason is because if they are in the session for longer than 1 minute, 2 minutes, and they've gone and done more than 2 questions, I cannot erase anything. So if a student's been in the session for 12 minutes and then finally says, I'm taking the wrong test, have them finish it. Let's go and take a look at the reading portion of the test. And what you begin with is general directions. This is about 7 pages of directions. So students who have never seen this before, this is something that they should take a look at. So I'm going to click through this. It provides you with an overview of the tools, how to use them, and then you can begin the test. So remember, session 1 is reading comprehension, so I'm able to go in, I can click on the side of the page to go forward. I can go backwards to the beginning by clicking on the left or right as if I were turning a page. Now on the practice test, it does give information about this item. This is not something that will appear on the regular test. So if your staff want to get more information about this question, what it's aligned to, which standards, you can click to enlarge that here. So I'm going to just click on an answer and then move forward to the next question here. That is, click again, click again. Now, I do want to point out that the line guide is something that I can move, and it's there when I turn the page. So this, if a student is used to using their fingers, they will be able to use the line guide instead to help them with the reading portion. And that clicks on and off here. A change this year is that there is a magnifier, and it goes up to 4 times.
Question.
And you can also hear that this is a text-to-speech. Text-to-speech is in itself a tool that is a universal tool. Amy, why don't you go ahead?
Highlighter. Stop.
Maybe you'll, are you telling me to stop? Maybe
no.
You'll get to this, but I've been doing a lot of research within the Forward accommodations guide, and a lot of this, and maybe everybody knows this, so I apologize if I'm wasting time, but it's important that these, like the embedded accommodations, which are not the universal accommodations that Tim is going over right now, that they are on the ticket when the student starts their practice test, because then they will be available. My larger question is that, being that we're giving this test to students who have not grown up maybe in the same like educational era like I did, where there was a lot of multiple choice questions, many students may not know or know the advantage of like flagging a question that you think is hard and then coming back to it if you have time, and or crossing out answers that you think are fundamentally wrong. And I see that it has those options for these tools within the practice test. Is there a mode for teachers to like show this to students in large screen before they're released to use it independently?
You could certainly project this. There is not a mode to project it, but you could share this on the board that you have, and you could do it in real time. So
Flag
what
question.
Amy, I apologize, but it's deciding that it wants to do the text to speech, which is one of the issues. And I apologize, Amy. I will get to all of those points in just a moment. But
Okay.
I do want to point out that unlike the past, a universal support that we have this year is text-to-speech for all. Every student will get text-to-speech at any time that they want it. Because of that, headphones are a necessity. I'm in the process of ordering some, but I can't order enough for every child in every school. So every school will get some, but I am going to get those ordered in the next 24 hours. So hopefully we'll get those soon and out to you. But as you can see, there is a voice that reads to this, and it's a universal voice. It is only in English. So this is one of the things we used to have to identify who were the struggling readers or striving readers that we had. And then we would give them text to speech so that they could listen to a person read the text to them. That is no longer the case. Every student will have that option. Yes, and Amy, you're right. You should have the ability to understand that if I want to go back to a question, I should be able to do that. And at the end, it will show me which questions I've flagged, which ones I have not done. I have 10 unanswered questions. And it talks about the different passages that I have. As you can see, there are multiple passages. So I can return to the questions and I can set the filter. And again, this is something that students may or may not understand. Staff haven't had this experience as well. So this is all new information this year. So I'm going to return to the test. This is also where I will end the test if I'm finished. Notice that students have to submit, tell us the test, say that they're done by clicking on the submit button. And that is one thing that students often forget. They simply close their Chromebooks. So let me jump back to the slide deck right now. So that link is in here and we can go back to it, but I do want to talk about these accommodations and support. So what's new this year? The universal accommodation, universal tools that are available, things like highlighter, notepad, the magnifier. You saw how big the text got on my screen. That was 4 times. It used to only go to 2 times. So that is something that students who have some visual impairment might find that a better piece than the text to speech in English. Those are all embedded. Those are all in the software. Things that they can get like scratch paper, graph paper, etc., are called non-embedded. And those pieces of paper, as soon as you hand them out, are considered secure and need to be collected at the end of every session. Here is what we were talking about. I was speaking about later, or excuse me, prior to this. Designated supports are those supports that a team of teachers, your EL staff, decide that this is in fact something that the student needs to have to kind of level the playing field. Examples that are embedded might be a contrasting color or masking, being able to do that. Here is one that is really important: stacked translations. Now, we have 114 languages being spoken in the district, and Spanish is by far the most common, but is not the only one. I'm working with the state right now to provide other options for students who are with other languages that we don't have a BRS in your building or even in the district for that particular language. And so we're working through some options, and I will get those to schools as soon as we solidify that. But we have options in play. Non-embedded pieces of support include word-to-word dictionaries, noise buffers, separate settings. Human reader is listed here, but because everyone gets text-to-speech already, it's kind of something that I would say is an extraordinary case versus an ordinary case. Jackie, question at all?
Hey, Tim, yes. I had a question about the words are hard. Stacked translations.
Yes.
So that is available for math for everything. And then in the ELA components, just for the directions?
It is available for in ELA for the directions, the prompts, and the responses, but not in session 1. It won't give you that passage in English because, again, it's an English reading comprehension assessment.
And that's the same. The prompt is never stacked translation, right? Or the passage.
The passage is not correct.
Okay. And then that is something we need to select for students.
Right, and here's the selection that there's actually a finer detailed choice this year. It used to be we just had stacked translations, which would be Spanish, English, etc. So it would show up on the screen in both languages. And if there was text to speech given, it could only be in English. Well, that has changed. And so the option we have this year is for a student who is using or could benefit from stacked translations, they can have the speech portion in either Spanish or in English. And that's the decision that needs to be made prior to the test taking place. Amy was talking about the code on the bottom of the tickets. So we will have a kind of a guide, a key, so to speak, because each of these supports will have a separate code so that, for instance, stacked translations with text-to-speech in Spanish might be STTS. That might be an example. So you have to know what that is at the bottom of each student's ticket prior to giving it to them, because once they start the test, it's really hard to pull it back and change things. So that decision that you and your team make regarding what supports a student get is really critical. Finally, those students who have some not typical needs, such as video sign language, closed captioning. They might need Braille or multiplication table. Those are considered accommodations, and they must have an IEP that says this, or 504, and it is usually something that is typically used in the classroom to support the student. We do not want any student to have something brand new on the test. They've never seen this type of accommodation or support, and suddenly it's now appearing for them on the test. So I'm just going to quickly. So Amy's comment, these accommodations should also be loaded. Yes. So we have sent out to your team a spreadsheet that contains all the students who are expected to test, who have IEPs, and who are English learners as of 2 weeks ago. And on that spreadsheet, we're asking not that anything be filled out except for the English learners, but for those students with IEPs, the accommodations that are from their IEPs, from OASIS, are pulled into that spreadsheet so that you can see it. The critical piece is if a student has an open IEP, that is going to be a really critical piece that we need to get that information from sooner rather than later. So it could be a double check, but this is also another tab on this spreadsheet would have the English language learners, and that is where it would be things like stack translations with text to speech in Spanish or in English might appear. And there will be a list of what are the supports that can be used. Okay, let's move on. And then I'll just open it up to some questions. So
And one more question about text to speech.
Yep.
We have to choose, even if they have the stack translations, we have to choose a text to speech language. It can't be both.
Correct. At this point, we're just thankful we get a choice of two. So the stack translations, again, will be for the whole entire test. And so that text to speech voice, which is used throughout the test for all students, that will then be reflected in which one of these languages. So if you don't have stack translations, text to speech is in English. If you do have stack translations, you can still have it in English. If you're a stronger English speaker, you might be a 3 or a 4, maybe then you're going to listen to it in English, but you have it in Spanish there to back up your understanding. If you're less strong, I would suggest then, a 2 or 3, then you would use a stack translation with text to speech in Spanish, potentially. Okay. Building out websites, both the public facing side and the staff coordinator side. So that should be done by the end of this week. So if you have information or questions and can't find it, and you can't find the website, please connect with us on my team and we'll get that for you. I'm going to skip over this, but I'm just going to say that there's teachers, an opportunity for staff to get involved in the background information and how we set cut scores at the state level this year. And so that's, if you have staff who are interested, this is going to take place after school is out in June, I believe. I want to throw in there, please keep in mind that the dynamic learning maps is critically important. We have reached out to all the case managers who have students who have this built into their accommodations and their IEPs. And so we're working through the process of providing the professional development for those case managers. And then they will, once the window opens, which is the same window in March through April as the Forward, once that begins, then they can take care of that business. I do want to remind you that everyone's going to probably get 1 or 2 opt-outs. Again, the communication needs to be written. It needs to, it can be an email, it can be a handwritten note. I will accept, though I am not crazy about it, but I will accept text messages as well. All of that needs to be forwarded, scanned and forwarded if it's a physical copy to myself and to Jamie Anderson, because we have to report to the board. All right, I am going to stop sharing right now because I want to provide time for you. If you have questions, or because I cruise through this, want to make sure that we provide options. So, Amy.
Hi, I just want to say that it's really important to be working with your CC teachers and your classroom teachers to pre-plan what this is going to look like for scholars with IEPs. Not that we want to just teach to the test, but as you all probably know, special education can be an area that you are identified as a TSI or ATSI school in. One of the practices that I am guilty of myself and I hope is no longer happening are two things. Like one, downplaying the importance of the students or the importance of the test in an effort to make students feel more comfortable with having to take something that we know is hard. So I think there's a difference between like, oh, just hurry up, we just need you to finish it, and I just need you to show me what you do know and let's like keep working at it. I also think that thinking about what we often have a testing room where many scholars with IEPs might go to as their alternate learning environment. And that alternate learning environment can often be more distracting or overwhelming to students than the actual classroom environment. So although it takes extra planning with staffing and everything else, I would just really, encourage you to think about how we're breaking this test up for students. Do we need to offer more short sessions for scholars with IEPs that have that possibility, and just really pre-planning so that we're giving people who do get accommodations the best option for success.
Hey, Amy,
Thanks.
based on that conversation about students who have like a separate setting or something like that identified, if looking at our list, we determine it actually is more conducive for the student to be in the general ed classroom for the testing, do we have to do a review revise?
So ideally you should do a review revise, but I think, yeah, ideally you should do a review revise, but also think about there might be other people like in non-classroom settings that might be able to sit with a student and do the test. And I also I haven't perfected this, and I don't know that we will be able to, but I know a lot of our bilingual staff have been marked off of the subbing for access testing, and I just wonder if there's supports that we will be offered. I'm hoping that there's supports that we will be able to offer to schools in terms of manpower to make sure that we have the staff we need to make sure that students do get the best learning environment for themselves.
What other questions do you have at this point?
I don't know if this has been part of the process as well, but when I was a special ed teacher a few years ago, we as best practice would look over our IEPs to make sure that the accommodations are correct, because we can do a quick review revise if necessary. So, Jackie, to what you were talking about, if the kids are going to have headphones on and that's really going to be less distracting for that scholar, this is the time to do a review revise. Or if you notice that inappropriate accommodations are on there or nothing, or there are not the correct accommodations on there, it's really best to have this year's case manager take a look at that.
Thank you. One of the things that I know Chelsea and I spoke about was the ability to have people take a look, people meaning students, families, and staff, take a look at this practice test ahead of time. I didn't go into the practice test and show you the stack translations. But if you want to see that, and you should, what that looks like, what that sounds like when somebody is taking stack translations with Spanish text to speech, those are things that students should be a little bit more comfortable with or familiar with. And again, this is something that can be projected. There's no security to it. It does not score students. So even if you're looking for a score at the end, it's like, well, did I get them all right? It's not going to provide a score. It is just simply there for practice. And will also allow you to practice with some of the tools that are there and find out what's available and how it works. So taking a few minutes to actually go through the grade level practice test, I think, is a critical piece. And again, I will put that into the notes as well as it'll be on the slide deck. So
Tim,
yes, Jessica.
you had mentioned about the spreadsheet for accommodations.
Yes.
Was that already sent?
Yes, it was sent about a week ago, at least a week ago, and it's due the middle of February. So
Who would it have been sent from?
It would have been sent from Sarah Wallner,
Okay.
Wollner. And if you don't have it, I can make sure that you get it. But someone on your team already does have it.
Okay. I didn't receive it, but maybe the test.
Yeah, so I was going to say it usually does not go to the principal simply because you have a ton of stuff. That's why we have the forward coordinators there. We give them the heads up and send that to them. So,
Okay. Got it.
But happy to share it with you, and just so you can see what it looks like. I will make a note of that.
Thank you.
Also, one of the things that I'm working on, and Jackie, I appreciate your interest in this, is I'm pulling together a list of who did not take the test in your building last year. Okay, so last year, actually the number of opt-outs was down from the prior couple years, which was good. Opt-outs are one thing. There's several reasons why that I have to list a reason why a student didn't take a test. Family opting out is just one. But what I'm going to do is not only pull that list of the students, but also say, here's what we know as far as the reason for not tested. Some of them were absent. Some of them refused. Some of them opted out. Some of them had medical conditions, etc. So I'm going to send you a list. It will just be last year's third graders and fourth graders, but you'll have a list of who the students are who did not test last year, so that you can, plan around communications, double checking with them, checking and sharing information with families if families have concerns, reaching out, or any people on your team doing that. So I will have that to you before week's end. Okay. I'm looking at the agenda right now, and I know I was hoping Chelsea would be able to make it, but I think one of the things that she wanted to do is she also wanted to double check with you if you want me to come out to visit your school and have a conversation with you and your leadership team, or you and your just you and your coach, SBLT, however you want to do that, I would certainly be happy to do that. We can set up a time for that. I also know that she wanted to go through the data-driven instructional diet. So that is also a document that she shared. I'm not sure if you've seen that before or have had a chance to talk about it. So, all right, I guess that is also being updated as we go. So What questions do you have for me? And if none, then
I'm full of all the questions today. Sorry, y'all. Tim, Chelsea was
Perfect.
looking into it. They're based upon her scheduling recommendations, 2 of the dates the week before spring break say no testing dates. If we don't have students of that faith,
yes.
can we
So
test?
here's the answer that I have. I always just caution people to make sure that, be aware. If you know you don't have students of a particular faith that is being recognized as a no test date, I'm saying that yes, but tread lightly. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's one of those things where, how do you know what faith the student is or is not involved with? And, so that's just a concern. So yes, but.
Thank you.
Yep.
That's helpful.
What other question, Jackie? You keep them coming if you want.
Tim, I just have a quick ATSI question, but it's specific to my building. So if we can just hold on, if you have a minute, I would take you up on that.
Absolutely. Also, I do want to tell everyone that because the ELA portion of the test has changed this year, it means that they're going to go through a standard setting process at the state level. Normally, we get the data back middle of June. It won't be back until the end of July. So again, this messes with everything. The school improvement process for both this year and for next year. So it's not a pretty thing, but that's what we have. And just so you're aware, that means that the soonest we are probably going to get information out to families is going to be closing in on September, because while they get us the information as a data file, it usually takes them almost 4 weeks to print those nice colored student information folders, and then it takes us at least 10 days to get them mailed out. So it's going to be a delayed process this year. All right. I'm going to hang out here for questions, but I appreciate everything that you are doing and your team is doing. So have a good evening if you don't have any. Jessica, question?
Did you have the slides
Yeah.
that you presented?
All right, let me share the slides.
Or this recording too, Tim, if you're going to be able to share that, that'd be great.
Yeah. So the slides are available. Was there a specific one, or I'll just put the slide deck into the notes? Is that?
That'd be perfect.
Okay, then I'll stop sharing. All right, and I'm also going to stop recording. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.